All right, we're done with day 3, and I'm going to talk about my 3 takeaways. The first one is set realistic goals because whenever I started this, I wanted to get up to the full speed of that exercise, thinking that since it's just one exercise, it wouldn't be too hard. Little did I know that that speed was a pretty tough speed to get to. Now, could I have possibly reached that if I all I did this week was practice, not a single other thing? Maybe. However, for right now, for just 1 week of practice, I don't think that getting to that full speed was realistic for me. I should have set it for something slightly lower, but still pushing me pretty hard. So just make sure that when you're setting goals, that they're not crazy like sky high, trying to learn an entire difficult song in 1 week. Try to start with something realistic, and then once you meet that goal, then push yourself. 2, experiment with different speeds because whenever I was playing this stuff, playing the slow speeds feels completely different than playing the fast speeds, not just in difficulty, but just in the way that it sounds and the way that the music speaks to me. So try out different speeds while you're playing, even if you miss some notes. It can be really interesting to see what comes out. And then 3, use music for inspiration. So for me, listening to doing some of the swing stuff, it's really fun to play, but it's kind of hard to think about not in context with music. So I can listen to some of the recordings that I have, or just listen to some of like the great swing era musicians. Listen to some Miles Davis, listen to some Benny Goodman, all that kind of stuff, and then I also listen to the specific drummers that some of this is based off of. Max Roach is a really big one. And so just ask your teacher or just do some of your own research to see about musicians that play your instrument and see what the thing that you're playing would sound like in context. And so that you can kind of have something to look forward to kind of aspire for. And that will kind of push you to that next level. Welcome back. This is day 3 of the practice challenge. And I'm going to get right into my warm up, and then I'll talk to you after that. Today, I worked on pushing the speed of my warm-up. So I started this whole warm-up at 70 BPM. It was pretty slow. It was or easy, maybe even slower than that. It was just pretty slow. Then yesterday I worked on getting that from 70 almost to 100. And then today I got it from 100 to 120. After getting it that fast, there's actually some exercises that got way harder, especially the ones that I had to double on my left hand. Specifically, there's one that I'm having to do. Hold on, it's. That one is pretty tough to go that fast because it's hard to line up these two when they have to hit together. And then another one that was pretty tough is just doing. And whenever I'm going that fast, I'm starting to hit this a little bit too hard. So I got to keep a mind of that. But also, the last one that was way harder when it was slow is way easier doing it this way. So if this one's going fast. That one's way easier to go fast because my snare drum is becoming a little more automatic. So anyway, that's an interesting thing to happen whenever we push it faster. On to the actual exercises. So I was just doing some metronome testing with the actual audio examples from the exercise. And I found out the fastest tempo that I've been going is 120 BPM. However, on the actual exercises, 120 is the slow tempo for those exercises. The fast tempo is 180. So, for reference, this is 120. And then this is 180. So, I still have a lot of room to grow, but something that's important is that even if I don't reach that speed, even if I get kind of close to that speed, that's still a lot of progress from where I started. So that's just something to keep in mind is think about how much you've grown from the beginning to the end of when you're practicing, and don't let not making a specific goal get you down and make it feel like you didn't get anything done. Anyway, I'm going to keep on practicing. I'll get back to you. After going through this whole exercise at 120 BPM, I think I'm going to adjust my goal a little bit, because the goal of reaching it all to the higher speed is not super realistic for just 1 week of practice. However, if I get to my goal, I'm going to keep on pushing. But adjusting your goal whenever it seems just a little bit too high can help you still feel like you've accomplished getting to that goal. So I'm going to adjust a little bit. Instead of making that high speed 180, I'm going to say 160 for right now, because that's still pretty fast, and I think that it's definitely doable, but it's still going to take a lot of work for me. I just went through it at 120, and there were still quite a few mistakes, but I went in and circled them, and I'm going to work on those ones in a more isolated way. I'll come back to you after I've done that, and I'll let you know what I think. So I pushed the speed of my practice to 160, and it feels completely different for multiple reasons. One, it's way harder to multitask at that speed. So with my left foot going up and down on that hi-hat, it's really, really hard to keep that going. So I even had to took it out a little bit just to make sure I could get that snare pattern. And then again, like we've talked about before, doing the right hand and left hand, doing different things, it's pretty tough at that speed. Another thing, though, that's way better about going that speed is the snare patterns are kind of sounding a little more cohesive, like they all mean something, like it's making a message instead of it just sounding like random little snare notes thrown in there. So if I'm playing slowly, for instance, this that kind of sounds lame, but if I'm doing this speed, like that wasn't exactly what was written, but having the snare doing ba 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 ba, that kind of stuff, whenever you're going with that faster speed, it sounds more like in improv and jazz, whenever the instruments are all speaking to each other. It's making the snare drum do that even more now. And the cool thing about these exercises is once I get comfortable with them, it doesn't just have to be on the snare drum. It could be da boom 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 da da boom boom da boom 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 boom. Like it can just be on all the different toms, and that can add a little more spice to it. So I'm really liking what happens when I push this tempo, but I'm going to work a little bit slower at getting to that tempo, because I can tell right now with combining this pattern, the hi-hat pattern, and the snare patterns, it's just not going to be able to happen at that speed right now. So I'm going to go to slower speed to where I can still combine all those things, work my way up there. I'll see you then. So something that is really, really hard, and I just decided to circle it and show you guys, is this rhythm right here. And the reason why is because in this first measure right here, the double ride cymbal happens on this beat, and then the snare drum does the other beat, so it's da 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 da. But then on this measure, it happens at the same time. So in one measure, you have to make them separate, in one measure, you have to put them together. And so going back and forth like that is really, really tough at a fast tempo. So it's good to just notice things like that. I'm really going to spend a lot of time practicing this specific pattern. Even though it doesn't look that complicated, it's a pretty tough one. And it sounds really cool when you can put it together. But anyway, that's just something for you to keep an eye on. Anyway, that is my last video for today. I will see you guys tomorrow.